Hello guys, I would say congrats to us. We are gradually finishing the tutorials on Neuro 1 and Neuro 2. And this is when we hop to the brainstem. What's the brainstem? We said that the brainstem consists of the midbrain, the pons, and the medulla. Alright, from above downwards. Okay? The midbrain continues with the cerebral hemispheres above. The medulla continues with the spinal cord below. The fourth ventricle, which continues with the central canal of the spinal cord, separates the cerebellum from the pons and the medulla posteriorly. Cranially, the fourth ventricle continues with the aqueduct, which passes through the midbrain. The midbrain, the pons, and the medulla are connected to the cerebellum by the superior, the middle, the inferior cerebral peduncles, respectively. Okay, so this is a clear image of the brainstem, right? Span the whole thing. You see the medulla, you see the pons, okay, and the midbrain. Now, the third and fourth cranial nerves emerge from the surface of the midbrain. The fifth arise from the pons. The sixth, seventh, eighth emerge at the junction of the pons and the medulla. The ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th cranial nerves emerge from the surface of the medulla. Now, the brainstem forms the pathway for ascending and descending tracts between brain and the spinal cord. The location of many important centers for the regulation of vital functions in the body. Okay, the brainstem is its own master because it provides many special control functions such as control of respiration, control of CVS, control of GIT, control of stereotype movement, and there's control of equilibrium, there's control of eye movement. Okay, the brainstem also serves as a way station for command signals from higher neural centers. Okay, that's when the medial brainstem pathways come through. I would say that the medial brainstem pathway, which work in concert with the ventral corticospinal tract, are pontine and medullary reticulospinal, vestibulospinal, and tectospinal tract. These pathways descend in the ipsilateral column, terminating in the ventral horn to control axial and proximal muscles. The medial lateral vestibulospinal tract controls the vestibular functions. The medial tract originates in the medial and inferior vestibular nuclei and projects bilaterally towards cervical spinal motor neurons that control the neck musculature. The lateral tract originates in the lateral vestibular nuclei and projects ipsilateral to the neurons of all the spinal levels. It activates motor neurons to anti-gravity muscles such as proximal limb extensors to control posture and balance. Okay. Now, the pontine and the medullary reticulospinal tract project to all spinal levels. They are involved in the maintenance of the posture and in modulating muscle tone. Pontine reticulospinal neurons are primarily excitatory, and medullary reticulospinal neurons are primarily inhibitory. The tectospinal tract originates in the superior colliculus of the midbrain. It projects to the contralateral cervical spinal cord to control head and eye movement. How about the lateral brainstem? The main control of distal muscles arise from the lateral corticospinal tract, but neurons within the red nucleus of the midbrain crosses the midline and projects to the spinal ventral horns to also influence motor neurons that control distal limb muscles. Now, the rubrospinal tract excites flexor motor neurons and inhibits extensor motor neurons. This pathway is not very prominent in humans, but it plays a role in the posture typical of the corticate rigidity. Then how about medulla oblongata? It is situated below the pons and continues downwards as the spinal cord and main pathways for ascending and descending tract. Important centers for control of vital functions, alright? These centers include what the respiratory functions. We have the dorsal and ventral groups of neurons that form the medullary respiratory centers that can maintain what normal rhythmic respiration. We have the vasomotor center that control blood pressure and heart rate. We have the deglutition center that regulates pharyngeal and esophageal stages of deglutition. We have the vomiting centers that induce what vomiting following what irritation or inflammation of GIT. Okay. We have the superior and inferior salivatory nucleus that controls secretion of saliva. The cranial nerve nucleus, that important cranial nerve arise from the medulla. We have the vestibular nuclei. The superior, inferior, lateral, and medial vestibular nuclei contain what? The second order neurons of the vestibular nerve. And note, all medullary centers and the nuclei of central nerves are controlled by the higher centers situated in the cerebral cortex and the hypothalamus. The most important role of the brainstem is what? In controlling what? Whole body movement and equilibrium is situated in the reticular and the vestibular nuclei. The reticular nuclei are into two major types. You have the pontine reticular, we have the medullary reticular nuclei. Now let's talk about the pons. We said that the pons is the bridge between the medulla and the brain, and the midbrain. What are the functions of the brain? We have the axons of the pontine nuclei joined to form the middle cerebral peduncle. It forms a pathway connecting the cerebellum with the cerebral cortex. Okay. The pyramidal tracts pass through the pons. The 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th cranial nerves are found in the pons. It contains pneumotaxic and amniotic centers. Alright. Now let's talk about the pontine reticular system. It transmits excitatory signals downwards into the cord through the pontine reticulospinal tract. These fibers excite the axial muscle, that's muscles of the vertebral column, and the extensor muscles of the limbs of the body, which support the body against gravity. Okay, the pontine reticular nuclei have a degree of natural excitability and also receives strong excitatory signals from vestibular nuclei and deep cerebral nuclei. Then how about the medullary reticular system? It transmits inhibitory signals to the same anti-gravity anterior motor neurons via the medullary reticulospinal tract. The midbrain, it lies between the pons and the diencephalon. It consists basically of the tectum and the cerebral peduncles. And the tectum consists of the superior and the inferior colliculus. And the superior colliculus controls the movement of the eye, the head, the trunks, and the limbs. Okay. In response to visual impulses, the efferent fibers from the superior colliculus going to the nucleus of the cranial nerve 3 causes what? Constriction of the pupil during light reflex. It also receives afferents from the optic tract, which helps in the integration of the optical and the posterior reflexes. The inferior colliculus is the center for what? Auditory reflexes. Its stimulation also produces reflexes for vocalization. Let's talk about the red nucleus. The red nucleus is a large oval mass of gray matter extending between the superior colliculus and the hypothalamus. It consists of the nucleus magnocellularis forming the rubrospinal and the rubobulbar tract, and the nucleus pulvocellularis forming what? The ruboreticular tract. Functions of the red nucleus, that's a control of muscle tone, control of complex muscle movements, control of writing reflex, help to maintain what? Upright position, control of movement of eyeballs, control of what? Skilled movement. Okay. So with this, guys, I think that's an overview of the brainstem. I'll say that the brainstem composed of what? The pons, the medulla, and the midbrain. Okay, so see you guys in the next tutorial, and bye for now.